Hello, Bethany Community Church. It's me, Pastor Daniel, and I'm excited to get to talk with you a little bit here. Wanted to give you some updates on our COVID-19 protocols. And I've got some notes here that I'm going to be reading from to make sure that I get most of the things right that I wanted to say and wanted to communicate from the elders. First, we just wanted to thank you. Thank you as a church for your incredible response during this hard time. I think it's fair to say, personally, this has been the toughest pastoral season that I've ever experienced, and I can't imagine going through it with another body of believers. There have been tough things, as I've said, but the tough aspects of what we're going through aren't because people aren't responding in a godly way. It's not because there are factions in the church. It's a difficult time because we're dealing with some good but competing wisdom issues, and we have difference of opinions about how best to handle some different wisdom issues. And so I want to first of all just thank you on behalf of the elders for your kindness and support as we've navigated rough waters. Now, the elders did want to offer some clarification for those who've asked some really good questions over the past few weeks about our protocols. So, for example, some people have asked, well, what's the purpose of the protocols? What are we trying to accomplish? Are we trying to keep anyone from ever getting COVID? Is the church flirting with legalism and some of the things we're asking people to do? Are we fearful? Is that why we're doing this? Are we not being cautious enough? Are there more protocols that we should be following? And just want to clarify, I think those are some great questions, especially the issue of purpose. What's our purpose? Why have these guidelines? The primary purpose of our protocols is to preserve the unity of the church in corporate worship as we proclaim Jesus Christ as Lord and prepare his people to worship him forever on Sunday mornings. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to preserve the unity of the church during this time so that we can worship together on Sunday mornings. Now, we recognize that there's some difficulties here. A couple things. One, we're trying to create an environment for a limited period of time where those who have some underlying health conditions or concerns can have a reasonable expectation of minimizing their risk of catching COVID-19 as they come to church. So these are some people who have said, okay, I have some concerns, some underlying health conditions. I want to come to church. Can you minimize at least the risk of me being exposed to COVID? And so that's part of our purpose. But at the same time, what we're trying to do with these protocols is we're trying to be sensitive to those who feel that some of these protocols might hinder their ability to enjoy and experience the fullness of fellowship, of unrestricted fellowship. So we're not doing this out of fear. We're not doing this with the belief that it will mitigate any risk whatsoever of catching COVID-19 or any other illness. We're saying, okay, we love both these groups, and we want to preserve unity in the church, and we want to be able to worship with one another. In other words, I don't think it's good to say, okay, we're going to not worship together. We're going to continue to worship together, and so how can we do that? That's our purpose. So to that end, general protocol, as you know, on Sunday mornings, we're holding 2 services so that we can socially distance from one another as much as reasonable in the worship center. And we're also requesting that people wear a mask from the front door to their seat or when they're traveling around the building. So they're walking around, they're wearing a mask. And the purpose of that is so that a person who's here, who wants to, again, minimize the risk of catching COVID-19, knows that other people who might be sick and not know it aren't unintentionally spreading the virus. We're not requesting that people who are standing around, fellowshipping, we're not requesting that they wear masks if they don't desire to do that. As elders, really, we had a great discussion on Tuesday night, and we all have different opinions, and we have different preferences and different beliefs about what the wisest thing to do in different situations is. But after a really good discussion on Tuesday night, we're convinced that these guidelines represent a way for the church, the healthiest way, really, for the church to pursue unity in a tough season at this moment, at this time. We don't think that the requests are burdensome. We don't think they're unreasonable in light of the potential health risks. We don't think they're unreasonable in light of what other churches are doing. You know, We surveyed other churches that are our size or larger, and all the churches that we're aware of that are our size or larger have more restrictions than we do, or are separating into different services based on COVID-19 protocol preferences, which we don't want to do right now if we don't have to. Now, we also recognize that not everyone can comply with what we're requesting here. So we're not trying we're not going to be enforcing compliance with people who aren't wearing a mask, or we're not going to be stepping in the role of parents and forcing children to wear masks. And I also think it's really important for us to, as we may observe a person not following protocols, so for example, maybe we see a person not wearing a mask, I think it's really important for we as a church to say, you know what, we're not going to judge a person who isn't following the same protocols that we are. Okay, we don't know why people are choosing to do what they're doing. And so in order, again, to preserve the unity of the church, we're going to be really, really careful about judging one another. And if we see someone following more protocols than are required, we're not going to judge them either. We're not going to say, well, that person is doing this out of fear or whatever. We're going to be very, very careful not to judge one another. So hopefully this clarifies at least some of the concerns people have. At our last elder meeting, we said, okay, this is going to be the guideline we follow, the protocol we follow through the holidays, unless there's some sort of major change. If you have some more specific questions, you can email us at covidquestions@bethanycommunitychurch.org. We know this isn't going to please everyone. We know that if we were all individually deciding how we would come together and worship, we would all have some different thoughts about how to implement these things. But again, as the elders talk, we said, okay, we think this is the best thing to do for our community right now. From my understanding of the people in the medical community who are advising us, the numbers in our area are getting worse, not better. And so I'd also encourage you to pray for those who are working in the hospitals and other medical fields. Pray that our church can do our part to slow the spread of the virus and not overwhelm the medical resources in our community. I would encourage you to praise God for this time. This is a great time for our church. This Sunday, I'm going to be talking about issues related to conscience and how we can preserve unity even whenever we disagree with one another. And so I'm just very grateful to God to bring us to a point where we need to ask ourselves some really hard questions to help us know if we're honoring the Lord rightly in our hearts and loving one another well. And so it's a great time for us to grow spiritually in our walk with the Lord and in our love for each other. Thanks, church. I hope that you have a great weekend here. I'm looking forward to worshiping with you on Sunday.